For this unit, we are going to be talking about real numbers. And yes, in math, we technically do have something that is not a real number. It's called an imaginary number. We aren't going to be talking about those this year. So we're just going to be talking about real numbers. Specifically in this unit in particular, we are going to be talking about integers, okay? So absolute value, what is that? Well, that is the distance a number is away from 0. It is represented in writing with these parallel vertical lines. It's showing that it's asking what is the absolute value of it. So it's saying how far away from 0 is 3. So when we're looking at 3, right, it's 1, 2, 3, or negative 3 is 3 away from 0. Versus 5, how far is 5 away from 0? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So even though they are in different directions, it is still a positive value. So absolute value is always going to be positive because distance, it doesn't matter what direction you go, we count it in the positives. So what is the absolute value of negative 7? Just 7. The absolute value of 18, sometimes people start thinking opposites and write negative 18. Nope, remember it's always positive. Negative 0.4 is just 0.4, and 2.6, 2.6. So we're going to do some basic problems with absolute value in it, and later on in the unit we'll get to some more complicated ones. So here I'm calculating what is the absolute value of negative 7? 7 plus the absolute value of 12 is 12. 7 plus 12 is 19. For number 6, absolute value of 18 is 18. Absolute value of negative 2 is 2. 18 plus 2 is 20. For number 7, we have kind of this expression here. I need to calculate within this expression first. So I'm first going to do 28 minus 19, which is 9. Then I'm finding the absolute value of 9, which is 9. In this case, it kind of didn't really matter that we did it that way, but later on it could have an effect, so you need to make sure you're doing it in the right order. Number 8, same thing applies. We need to do within the absolute value sign first, and they're kind of like parentheses. You do them first. So 35 plus 6 is 41. So we're doing the absolute value of 41, which is 41. And then we're doing 50 minus 41 is 9. Number 9, which numbers have an absolute value of 12? Well, there's always going to be two values, the positive and the negative. So positive 12 is 12 away from 0, and negative 12 is 12 away from 0. Same thing applies even with decimals. So that which numbers have an absolute value of 4.2? The positive value is 4.2 away, as well as the negative. And then looking at kind of a real world application here of comparing distances using absolute value. A blue whale swims at negative 26.3 meters. A bald eagle flies at 17.8 meters. Find the following. So the absolute value of the blue whale, so how far is the blue whale from sea level? 26.3. What about for the bald eagle? How far away is that from 0? 17.8. So who is closer, right? We're thinking about this. If we have sea level, you've got this bald eagle up here at 17.8. You've got this whale at 26.3. Who is closer to sea level? This smaller number here, the bald eagle, is closer. Doesn't matter positive versus negative, it's just who is the closer distance to 0. Next up, we're going to look at writing integers based on situations. There's a lot of negative and positive terms that we already know. Up here, we've listed some that maybe you're not as familiar with. Withdrawal means you're taking money out of an account, so that's a negative thing. Debt means you owe money, that's negative. Depth that's like down into the ocean, for example, to its bottom, it's a negative value. Descending, you're going down, so that is negative. And then there are opposites here. The opposite of withdrawing is to deposit, putting it into your account. That's good. Your account goes up. The opposite of debt, making a profit or income. You're earning money. That's positive. Altitude, you may hear like on the plane, we are at an altitude of 30,000 feet. That's how high you are up in the air. That's a positive value. And the opposite of descend is to ascend, moving up. So let's write an integer to represent each situation. Gerald deposited $900 into his bank account. So he deposited $900. If you don't remember what deposit means, it says into, which means it's going into the account. That's a good thing. That is a positive integer. When we're representing positive integers, I don't need to use a plus sign. Number 13, you have a debt of $24. Debt is negative, so that is negative 24. A student loses 5 points for being late to class. So you're losing points, that is a negative thing, so negative 5. A savings account earns $10. You're earning money, that is a good thing, that is a positive value. A typical airplane flies at an altitude of 38,000 feet. What would an airplane having an altitude of 0 feet represent for this problem? Well, we're thinking about a plane, 38,000 feet altitude, that's up in the air. So if it has an altitude of 0, it's not actually in the air, it's on the ground or at ground level. Some people said sea level, which I guess technically could work for certain types of planes, but realistically, most planes, R0 would be that ground level. So an integer to represent the situation originally was 38,000 feet. Number 17, in the Bears game this weekend, Mitch Trubisky was sacked for a loss of 5 yards. What would a value of 0 mean in this situation? So first I'm going to write what the integer represented for the original sentence, which was a loss of 5, so negative 5. 0 would mean, you could say, didn't gain or lose yards. You could say they stayed in the same spot, anything like that. But you can make it simple by just using those two opposite words together. All right, the last thing that we're going to look at is negative signs and what they mean. And while this might seem simple, just looking at it here, this is going to apply to our adding and subtracting integers later on. So we want to make sure that you have an understanding of this, even though it is a 6th grade standard. So what does negative 8 mean? Well, really, it means this negative on the outside also means opposite. So this means the opposite of negative 8. Well, what is the opposite of negative 8? That is positive 8. So you're going to see us getting to this point where when we see that double negative, it really means a positive. So same thing here. We've got this negative on the outside, or this opposite side on the outside. What is the opposite of negative 12? That's what this is saying. The opposite of negative 12. And what is the opposite of negative 12? 12. So again, we see that double negative. It's telling us it is a positive.